In the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA096.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you
Sweet.
can
Hey,
do
Taylor,
for
how
your
are you?
country.
Good. How are you?
Good. Do you like my radio voice? How I started out when we were talking without me recording, and I was just all like gloomy or dull, and now I'm
I
just
do.
super radio-y.
I can totally tell. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
hmm hmm
Um, how's your weekend been?
Good. We did well, I bought a giant, I have this idea in my front yard to like put bird cages around and fill them with rocks. And then I found one on Facebook Marketplace that's like huge. It's like over 6 feet tall. And my husband very graciously drove like a half hour to go get it and um dug like a flat spot in the front yard for it to be, and we're gonna start filling it with rocks, and it's cool. So I'm excited.
Is it meant to be decorative?
Yeah,
Okay. Sweet. When you're done, send a picture. I'd love to see what it looks like.
I will. That was
I'm getting into the Halloween season.
fun. Ooh,
So
nice.
yeah, I went and bought some pumpkin candles today.
Ooh,
So it's been
shaped or flavored.
flavored, scented. I
Got it.
didn't eat them.
You know what
Uh,
I mean.
but I'm just finally getting in the spirit of the season, which is nice.
I
So
love it. I love it.
yeah, and by the way, Target is chock full with Halloween decorations already, which is great. So yeah, because the
Yeah, I'm
season.
ready. I think we'll start soon.
I am going to Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando.
Yeah. I mean,
You should
cool.
you should come. Remember when we did that? Did it wait, did
Yes.
I wait, we didn't do in Orlando. I did in Orlando
No.
when I was living in Orlando. We went to Anaheim. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I don't think it's in Anaheim. I think it's in Hollywood. Whatever. Who cares?
Yeah, you're right. It is Hollywood.
Isn't
Yep.
it?
I'm mixing up
Um,
California Adventures with the other one.
cool though. That sounds fun.
Yeah. Sweet. Okay, you want to dive in?
Yeah, well, let me introduce us.
Oh, yeah.
Hello. Welcome to Doomed to Fail. We are the podcast that brings you history's most notorious disasters and epic failures twice a week. And I am Taylor, joined by Fars, who's going to Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando.
Yes. Thank you. I get why you fired me from doing the intro because even now I forget to let you do it.
No problem.
Am I going first today?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. This one's gonna be a little short one too, but I don't know. I don't know how folks feel about the short ones, but let us know if they suck. But this one, I mean, it's a great story. It's just there wasn't that much to it. So, but yeah, we'll go ahead and dive in. And this one is going to be a pretty bizarre case involving fly fishing, museums, and theft.
Ooh,
Yeah, so I learned a lot about fly fishing.
that'll come in handy.
I'm trying to humble brag here. So
Mhm.
let's get into the museum part of the story. So we're going to be talking about the Natural History Museum at Tring, which is in the UK.
Mhm.
It is now part of the Natural History Museum of London, but it originally was started by a guy named Walter Rothschild, part of the Rothschild family, which like really like I could do a whole episode. There's so much stuff there. I went like tiny bit into it and was just kind of blown away. They were crazy rich, like finance people, banker people. Apparently they were
Yeah,
worth
yeah.
like $350 billion at the time, which is like
Jeez.
insane. Yeah. So, anyways, this guy Walter was born into this insanely wealthy family, and he basically, as he became an adult, had to enter the banking industry despite having no interest at all. But it was a family business, so he had to do it. What he really cared about was zoology and just loved collecting bugs and animals. That's really what he cared about. So,
What year was this?
the next line
Oh,
was in 1892.
that's exactly when like it just reminds me like of it's very Teddy Roosevelt of him.
Yes, he
Yeah.
reminded me very much of Teddy Roosevelt as I was
Yeah.
reading this.
Yeah.
So in 1892, he was 24 years old, and he opened a private museum to house his ever increasing collection of zoological effects. It would
Can
grow.
I
Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm gonna move my hand, see if I can make Zoom do a thing. I love that.
Yeah.
That's what you should do with your money.
See, like I think the Hearst guy did that, except he did it after he was a billionaire, right? Like he
Right.
turned his house into a zoo, but it was like way after the fact. But his collection would grow to house tens of thousands of specimens, including a very influential collection of birds by a man named Alfred Russel Wallace. I learned so much for this. This is like the funnest one I researched. I learned so much.
I'm really excited. I feel like you learned a ton. I'm excited. Keep going.
So I'm gonna segue real quick into like why this collection was so important and who this guy was. So Alfred Wallace was a biologist who traveled the world collecting animals to study. In I wrote no, it's yeah, it's definitely 1859. It's not 1959. So in 1859, he was the very first person to publish his theory on natural selection and evolution.
What was his name again?
Alfred Wallace.
I feel like I've heard about him, and I think I talked about him and talked about Darwin. 'Cause Darwin
He's
like took it from him.
So that's not true. That's not true. We can't besmirch Darwin on this, but there's a story behind it. And I was like blown away as I was reading this. So Darwin, like you said, he gets credit for discovering natural selection, but he published his book on the origin of species a year after 1858. And that's mostly why people think that he gets the credit for, but it's actually not. These two were independently researching things. They weren't aware of each other's studies. Darwin had started writing about this since the 1830s, so 2 decades earlier, but he was just terrified of publishing his research because he thought that like the religious class would just like beat him to
Mm,
death. And
that's fair.
so he didn't have the courage really to publish his findings until Alfred Wallace published his findings, and he was like, okay, I should talk about this too because now it's already out there. So that's what happened. So the animals that helped Wallace reach his conclusion were mostly insects and birds. Birds in particular seem to be kind of the north star for animals to figure out natural selection aspects. Like, for example, Darwin's famous for his Galapagos finches.
Hmm.
And they're like a huge part of how he developed his theory on evolution. So, because Wallace's collection was of extreme scientific value, it was given that his collection would be handed over to a natural history museum after his passing for further study and for the public to be able to see it. So, part of the collection that he handed off, I had to look these birds up because I don't know what they were. So, uh, the type of birds included the superb bird of paradise, the
Like better than another bird of
apparently
paradise.
so okay, the bird of paradise flower looks like this thing. That's why we call it a bird of paradise flower. You're looking at the bird right now.
I don't think that looks like.
It's like it's the
It doesn't look
coloring
like
is
the.
off, but with like the pointiness of it, the way it like dives and all that, like it's supposed to mimic the bird of paradise, I guess.
All right.
He also had what's called a resplendent quetzal, Quetzal,
Uh,
and the magnificent rifle bird. I
what's
can't remember which one
bird?
was which. One of these was like crazy beautiful. One was like this like sharp, like green with like a bright red breast. Like it was gorgeous. It looked like it had this cutest little fro. It had like this like blonde fro kind of on it. It was really cool looking.
What's a Quetzal? What does Quetzal mean?
I don't know.
Because a
But
Quetzalcoatlus is a dinosaur.
yeah, okay, yeah. There was a flying dinosaur called the Quetzal at some point too, right?
Oh, were you gonna tell me that?
No, but
Oh,
when you brought it up, I was like, oh yeah, that's where I've seen that name before.
I'm a mom, so I know a lot about dinosaurs.
Yeah, it's great. And you're a Jurassic Park fan, hopefully.
Yeah, duh.
Yeah, of course. So from here, so that's the collection that was kind of in this museum, and like that's how it all kind of accumulated. I'm sure there's like a lot more to it than that, but like it's a very important collection that this museum was holding on to. From here, I'm going to pivot to fly tying.
I honestly don't know where this is going,
I
so I'm
know.
very excited. I'm
Isn't it
like,
awesome?
usually when you're talking, I'm also making like the episode like page, like the image, but I don't even know what to put on it. So I'm not gonna Google it. I'm just you keep going.
It's gonna be fun. I gotta give a shout out to Rachel. She's the one who suggested this. I would never have
Nice.
found this on my own.
Amazing.
So, okay, we're gonna pivot to the totally unrelated topic of fly tying. So, fly tying is the practice of creating lures for fly fishing. The basic design of a fly tie lure is a hook, the thread connecting the lure to the fishing pole, beads to kind of mimic the head of an insect, and feathers. So it's kind of piecing together a little bit here. So the idea is you cast the fly over water to imitate the behavior of a flying insect to bait a fish into taking the lure. That's basically it. From what I've
Hmm.
gathered, fly fishing is considered like significantly harder than regular fishing. And it's like it requires a ton of preparation, a ton of custom equipment, and a lot of skill. It seems very multifaceted and complex.
Is it because you have to stand in the water? Do you have to stand in the water?
That's the one where you stand on the water.
Mhm.
Yeah. And actually, so one of my favorite like clothing places, it's a place called Orvis. I don't know if anybody else has them, but they're here in Texas. They're not big, but they're like semi known. And I just like them because their clothes like just last a lifetime. Like whatever you buy there, you will if you don't outgrow it size wise, you'll own it for the rest of your life. And they are huge with fly fishermen. Like one whole section of the store, I just like walk around looking at their lures. It's really fun. I mean,
That's
I
fun.
couldn't get into it because like it seems like a really expensive hobby, but it does seem
That's fair.
fun.
Yeah.
So, like anything that is complex and multifaceted, it kind of has some culture and it has some subculture, which includes people who just create or collect the flies themselves. And like people who like don't fly fish, i.e., like they literally just create these things or buy them.
It seems like a fun craft.
It's a craft. It's literally a craft. Yeah, that's what
Hmm.
it's a craft for like older men. That's basically it. It's like doily making for men, basically. So and like frankly, like I mean, I don't know, like if you look at some of them, some of them like are really really pretty, and some of them are really really nice. They're meant to be very specific to the type of fish you want to catch, the season in which you want to catch the fish. Like there's a whole weird science behind it.
Yeah.
It sounded a lot like collecting like collectible baseball or Pokemon cards. You know, like it's just, you got to be a real
Hmm.
nerd about this stuff to really know what it is. And yeah, people who are into it just want the rarest and most valuable flies, even if they don't end up using them. So, with that context, let's get to the main character or story who's going to kind of piece all this stuff together for us. A guy named Edwin Rist. So, Edwin was born in 1989 in New York, and he was autistic, he was homeschooled, and he was very fixated on two things early on in his childhood. One was playing the flute, he was an exceptional flute player. The other was fly tying. He never went fly fishing, he just was really into fly tying.
Yeah, that makes
Specifically,
sense.
yeah, specifically, he was into Victorian fly tying, which is a unique distinction because this is like the most expensive end of the hobby. Like this is not what you don't walk into Orvis and find Victorian fly ties there.
Right.
Like these those are mass produced things. This is like the Rolls Royce of like fly tying essentially. He got really good at this. So his parents actually helped him get deeper into this because they would take him to conferences. He would go to conventions. He would compete in fly tying competitions and win them. He was really, really good at this essentially. Ultimately, as he turned into a young adult, he was accepted to the London's Royal Academy of Music to study music, study flute, and keep going in that direction with his interests. So he goes off to London and he discovered the museum we started with in Tring. And he learned of the extensive collection of rare birds and decided to write them a letter under a pseudonym saying that he is a ornithological researcher. Yes, thank you, Taylor.
Yep.
And not
A bird
a bird guy.
nerd.
Yes,
Um, a bird guy.
and he wanted special access to specimen that were within the museum. And some way, somehow, this access was granted. So Edwin goes down to the museum and he gets access to parts of the museum that other people don't get to see. He gets to see where some of the rarer stuff is kept because not, I mean, you show tens of thousands, it's not all out on display, right? There's a whole
Hmm.
back of house. And he also gets a sense of where those are kept as well as what the security looks like. So he's basically just casing this place like it's a bank in like a heist movie, essentially.
Hmm.
A few months passes, and under the cover of darkness and having memorized his diagram of the interior of this thing, he went back to the museum and used a glass cutter to cut open the glass and enter the museum when it was dark, when it was nighttime, nobody was there. He would go about stealing about 300 rare bird species, some extinct, some extremely endangered.
Not fun. That's
It took
bad.
about, go ahead.
I have like a bunch of stupid questions. Did he need the entire bird?
No, so he wanted the bird skin to pluck the bird feather off of. So most
Like,
stories that you read about him are that he stole a ton of bird skins because they contain the feather, but the Alfred Wallace collection was complete birds that were stuffed, and so yes, you would have to take the whole bird in that case. Yeah, fun stuff.
gross. I never, I guess, no, no, at a gross point, I'm not gonna bring it up.
Very mature, very mature.
Mm.
Um, so it took about a month before anybody realized that these things were missing because, like I said, they weren't display birds; they were just on the back. They were there for research purposes. Um,
Hmm.
and and again, a lot of these birds were extinct or super endangered or semi-endangered. These were read a lot of disparate takes on this because some people were like, "Who cares? These things have not existed in the world for 150 years. Whatever. Like we can move on from this." But then a lot of researchers would show up and say, "No, like this proves all the evolutionary stuff that Alfred Wallace
Yeah.
put forth because this thing went extinct, and now the bird in this region has adapted. So now we're able to read the clues of the environment on how the adaptations are moving. Like it's actually super
Yeah. It's important.
consequential.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there was something. God, I can't remember the exact story. It was something about how we learned that DEET was poisonous because
Mm.
of a comparison of the Tring bird collection to local birds within that environment. I forgot exactly what the story of the background was, but like it actually is consequential.
Totally.
So police rightly realized that the only person who would get value out of these birds would be some insane bird collector who's also a cat burglar, or the more logical answer, a fly tire.
Why would they go to that right away? I don't,
Why would you steal bird skin?
I don't know, but it's weird. I don't love the term bird skin, and
It's
I
like
guess
Hannibal Lecter. It's like Buffalo Bill.
I mean, I don't know. It just feels like I guess to be the next person who needed them.
Well, so what's interesting is I was in this point of the story, I hadn't figured out what was actually what the end this conclusion end of the story was. But at this point of the story, I was just like dying to know how much these damn things worth. And so I started
And
Googling.
like, I guess another question I have. Yeah, wait, hold on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I just like talked over you. Remember in like a long time ago, like a lot of birds in Florida went extinct because they were using them for hats. Like there's feathers in hats.
I'm sure.
But I,
I didn't
but
know
I
that,
guess
but I'm
this
sure,
this
yeah.
isn't a. I guess that would be the only other person I could think needed feathers.
Yeah, if you want a hat in your feather, call it macaroni.
A feather in your
Um
hat. Yeah.
but what I was trying to figure out was how much are these damn things even worth? Like, you know, and so I started Googling around, and like the first hit I got when I Googled some variation of term of fly tie rare fishing, you know, price was
Hmm.
flyfishing.co.uk, which is a forum, and folks there were talking about these things going for around 1,500 or so per. I mean, that's for like the very rare ones, but most of them were in like the hundreds of dollars. Like, it's not inconsequential. I mean, you're using one or
Yeah.
two feathers per bird. You're probably getting like tens of thousands of feathers per bird. I mean, it could add up some real money.
Yes, that's fair.
So that what I ended up doing there is how this story ends because the police literally did the exact same thing I did because they went to the fly fishing forums and were trying to find people who were trying to sell flies on the forums from the type of birds that were stolen. Because again, nobody had these birds. Like there was only one guy in the world who had these birds, and it was this guy. That was it. 15 months after the heist, police tracked Edwin's activities on the forum and arrested him at his apartment in London. I love how the story discusses this, where they're basically like, yeah, he immediately confessed on the spot because surrounding him in the apartment was incredibly rare birds and bird
These
feathers.
are mine.
I just
I've always had
they're
this.
bar
My,
mitzvah gifts.
my mom gave them to me.
So ridiculous. So he got a unique case of privileged justice because he was found guilty, obviously, of burglary. Um, but his lawyer also argued that he had severe Asperger's syndrome, which seems true. I mean, I can't. It doesn't sound like he doesn't have Asperger's, And so because of that, he was spared prison time. It was just time served and he got to go home. He said that he used the money he made from selling his feathers and lures to purchase a new flute. That's his argument why he did it. That's the motivation for why he did it. Uh,
So
a
did
t-
did how many went back, or that he did he destroy all of them?
Hundreds were missing.
Right.
Hundreds were missing. So like again, he had a lot of feathers to play with out of 300 birds. I think it was like 117, somewhere around there actually went back, and the rest are we don't know. We don't know where they are.
Oh my
We
God,
either
that's
made
so
them in lures
funny.
or not.
Um, I kind of feel like there's a chance that someone at the museum was like, "Good, I don't need all these drawers of like 100-year-old bird skins. I had to next week. I was supposed to categorize them. Now I don't fucking have to."
You should never work in a museum, Taylor.
I have worked in a museum, but I feel like I would be like, "Oh, phew, I don't have to catalog that because all you do when you're in a museum is catalog things."
It's true.
Um,
So
yeah.
so the good thing, the reason why he took these birds specifically was because they were categorized, because they were
Mm,
all labeled, and he knew that these were the rarest lures that you could possibly make for this Victorian era version of like fly tying.
do they know
So
who bought them?
we don't know about them. No. No, they didn't went that far. It seems like this is like a hobby of super wealthy older white men, and I don't feel like they
Hmm.
generally get prosecuted at a regular rate like everybody else does. And so I think that I think this was like a Prince Andrew situation. Like, let's not ask any more questions because we don't want to know
Yeah.
anything else. But he would eventually graduate from university. He would move to Germany, where he assumed the name Edwin Reinhard and continued on his musical career. He has a YouTube channel, which is called at Heavy Metal Flute, where he recreates songs and soundtracks on his flute, and it's actually pretty fun.
That sounds awesome.
He does Master of Puppets on the flute. He does Lord of the Rings on the flute. He does like the oh god, what's the other one? Game of Thrones on the flute. He does a lot of fun flute stuff. He hasn't posted in like 6 years though, so like who knows what's going on with him. I tried finding him and I just there his name's not so unique that you wouldn't find 1,000 of these guys, so I didn't get too far
Hmm.
with it. But
God.
that's him. That's the feather thief, Edwin Rist slash now Edwin Reinhard, and he really pulled together a lot of disparate topics that I did not think would ever come into a single outline.
Yeah, no, I didn't know where that was gonna go. I think it's funny that he changed his name, but everybody knows what his name is.
And
Like that. Okay, that doesn't make sense.
but also, he's just like trying so hard to be German at this point. Reinhard. It's like, come
Yeah,
on. It's like
come on.
Rhineland.
Yeah.
But
Wow, that's wild.
yeah, it's
That's,
fun, isn't it?
yeah, super fun.
Because nobody got hurt, really. I mean, yes, invaluable research was destroyed, but nobody was physically hurt.
Yeah, no one was hurt. Kind
It's
of
just
fun.
feathers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably stole one
I
of your pigeons that went extinct forever ago.
but Miles and I have been talking about passenger pigeons. He's very worried about them. Wait, I have a book to show you. Wait, pause. I had to go under Miles's bed to find this. But this is a cute book that we read a lot called Dodos Are Not Extinct.
Aw,
And it's about dodos who pretend to be other animals. It's like wearing a toucan beak.
so cute.
And then like it says that like the Tasmanian tigers, like they or there's like these guys that were like half horse, half zebra, and they're like, oh, they just wear striped pants. So like you just can't tell
Aw.
that they're there. But at the end of it, it does have a pretty comprehensive list of, well, I don't know. It has a list of examples of animals that have gone extinct, and I've been thinking of researching some of these as well. And the
The
passenger page is on there, which is why I brought this up.
very cute. Walter Rothschild was obsessed with zebras and he would crossbreed them with all kinds of different things.
I did just see a picture of him with a
Being with a
cart being pulled.
carriage, yeah, being pulled
Yeah,
by zebras. So he actually rode one of those into like the Queen's Court or something, like to prove that you could domesticate a zebra.
love it.
It's like, I'm like wondering, like, how badly did you beat those zebras to like pull a
Um,
carriage?
yeah, I don't think domesticating a wild animal is easy.
Also, Taylor, there's a movie that William Defoe is in about a hunter who is seeking out a Tasmanian Would you? God, I forgot the name of
Tiger?
them. Tiger. Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. It's really fun. It's a really fun movie. It's kind of scary, but like in a fun way.
They went extinct in 1936.
Yeah, some people think they're not extinct. That's what the whole premise of the movie is. Yeah,
The last Tasmanian tiger was named Benjamin. He
very
died in
cute.
captivity.
Poor baby.
Poor kitty.
Sweet. That's my story. Do you have any tales from listeners?
Um, Morgan told me that she thought that she had appendicitis, and the thing that they had her do was jump, and she said that she couldn't jump, and they were like, "Oh no!" And like that was like a sign.
I'm just glad to know that it's actually really painful because at
You'll
least
know.
you
You would know.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think
It's-
that's the thing.
So
Yeah, but if you have anything you'd like us to cover, any cool ideas, like this was such a cool, like random one that I'd never heard of, let us know. We're at doomtofailpod@gmail.com and then doomtofailpod at all of the socials.
there's so many of those. There's so many
I
weird stories. It's
know.
such a shame that like so much history is just like not known.
I
Well, I
know.
mean, you can know it, but like you gotta like not have a job and you can not just like go around trying to discover stuff, which like I guess ultimately is gonna be our goal with me in a cave and you in underground subterranean tunnels. But still, let us let us research this, please.
I was just imagining me and you with walkie-talkies for no reason, and like I'm inside the Paris catacombs and you're like in a cave, and I'm like, "Can you hear me?" Like if we didn't need to talk while we were doing it, there'd be no reason to, but still,
It's like a funner version of Indiana Jones.
yeah.
Love it.
Ooh. Hmm. Cool. Well, thank you. That's
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. That's my story. Anything you want to lead out with?
Nope. Oh, if you haven't already, please just give us some stars on Apple Podcast. We have like 2 1 stars, and like who knows why, that's annoying. So,
Yeah, and if you gave us 1 star,
what is wrong with you? Why are you still listening?
like you have a
What is your,
sad
what is your problem?
life.
What is your problem?
Yeah, what is your problem?
I don't
We'll
believe that you're a
find you.
podcast 1 star person.
We'll find you. We'll put you in the catacomb. Okay, that's too far. All
Too
right.
far, too far.
Yeah, subscribe to doomtofailpod@gmail.com or write to us at doomtofailpod@gmail.com. Subscribe on doomtofailpod on YouTube, the socials, all the good things, and we'll join you again in a few days.
Woohoo.
Sweet. Thanks, Taylor.